According to Google, NASCAR was one of the trendiest topics in 2020, and everyone I know is talking about a recent survey that says NASCAR is one of the fastest growing brands among 18 to 23-year-olds. Let's talk about that. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric and welcome to Out of the Groove. Today we are talking about trends. There was some remarkable data that came out this week about NASCAR and how it's been able to attract new fans recently, data that is really promising about the future of the sport, but we're going to talk about how legitimate it is, what it means, how it came to be. We are going to talk about all of that today. But first, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, make sure you are, because while it may be the off season, if you've been paying attention in recent weeks, the videos have not slowed down, the news has not slowed down, the rumors have not slowed down. There's been plenty to talk about around the world of stock car racing just in the last month, and I don't anticipate any of that slowing down as we inch closer and closer to the 2021 Daytona 500. So make sure you're subscribed so you do not miss a thing. I've got some other very exciting projects in the works that hopefully you'll get to see more of before Christmas. So make sure you are subscribed. You're not going to want to miss a thing. Let's talk about this data. According to Google, 2 NASCAR drivers were among the most searched people of 2020. We're nearing the end of the year, thank goodness, and now Google is releasing a number of different lists showing who and what were the trendiest topics of 2020, and 2 NASCAR drivers, Ryan Newman and Bubba Wallace, found themselves high on this list. According to Google, Ryan Newman was the most searched athlete in the year 2020. Ahead of names like LeBron James, Tom Brady, Ryan Newman tops the list. And it doesn't stop there. Also, according to Google, Ryan Newman was the 5th most searched person of any kind in the year 2020. Wow. Now, obviously, this goes back to the Daytona 500 in February. Of course, Ryan Newman was involved in that horrifying last lap crash, a crash that took the breath away from pretty much everybody who saw it live, whether in person or on TV. And over the next 48 hours or so, the entire public was taken on quite an emotional journey, from the fear and uncertainty moments after the crash and even through the first night, to hints of optimism the next day, and then of course the image of Ryan Newman walking out of the hospital with his young daughters. Again, less than 2 days after the incident occurred. This was a triumphant end to a traumatic story for many people. Everyone loves a happy ending, so the fact that Ryan Newman survived a horrifying crash on the last lap of NASCAR's biggest event, it's not shocking at all to me to see that he was high on the list as far as top searched up athletes. I'm sure during those 2 or 3 days, there were a lot of people, one, probably Googling who Ryan Newman even is, because I don't think many people had heard of Ryan Newman before this, but even then seeing the crash, seeing the interviews he gave afterwards, the updates on social media about his health. It was a miraculous story that reminded not only NASCAR fans, but the general public that auto racing is dangerous. There is a significant amount of courage, of bravery it takes to willingly get behind the wheel of one of those machines, especially before a race like the Daytona 500. And while obviously we don't want drivers to get hurt, that reminder that NASCAR and motorsports are dangerous, in a marketing sense at least, is good for NASCAR. So Newman being the most searched athlete in 2020 all stems from the saga that was Daytona and the days that followed it, but obviously it had a happy ending, a remarkable ending, so I don't know how Ryan Newman feels about being on the top of this list. I wonder if he's happy about it or kind of annoyed by it. I honestly don't know, but either way, it's noteworthy that a NASCAR driver tops the list of highest most searched athletes of the year. I mentioned there were 2 NASCAR drivers at the top of that list. Just 2 spots below Newman, the third most searched athlete of the year was Bubba Wallace. I'm honestly a little surprised these weren't flipped, because while obviously the Newman Daytona deal was huge and everyone was talking about it, it really only lasted for about 2 or 3 days. The Bubba Wallace was involved in a number of national stories this year. Early on in the season, he first got media attention when he publicly called on NASCAR to consider banning the Confederate flag at races, something that NASCAR actually obliged and put into effect later in the season. Bubba Wallace attracted many supporters for that stance and also drew in some critics as well. Of course, everything sort of climaxed a few weeks later at Talladega, when once again Bubba Wallace found himself as the top story across the nation after one of his crew members found a garage pull rope in their garage stall had been fashioned into a noose type knot. Concerned, the crew member brought it to NASCAR's attention, and it was brought pretty quickly to NASCAR president Steve Phelps' attention. Steve Phelps himself contacted Bubba Wallace to let him know what had been found and how NASCAR was handling it, and then shortly thereafter, unprovoked, NASCAR decided to put out a public statement stating that they had found a noose-type knot in Bubba Wallace's garage stall and that they were going to begin investigating it. The FBI got involved, but then the very next day when the race was run, obviously you saw all the drivers, crew members, officials, everyone stand with Bubba at the front of the field. It was a really cool moment. In the following days, then the FBI determined that the noose rope had actually been put there several months earlier, the last time NASCAR was in Talladega, when it was Paul Menard using that garage stall. Both the FBI and NASCAR were able to confirm that Bubba Wallace was not the victim of a hate crime, thankfully. But as expected, this attracted massive media attention, and there was a ton of misinformation from people on all sides of the incident. There were so many lies and incorrect details being spread across the internet about the whole incident. I mean, if you want what actually happened per all the available evidence, it's exactly what I just said in a high-level sense. Of course, Bubba Wallace at the center of this, I think, handled it very well in a lot of ways. He went on TV, he went on to radio shows, and I think said a lot of really good and powerful things. But then in some instances, I think he did say and do some things that were not particularly helpful and I think correctly drew some criticism. But of course, Bubba Wallace attracted a ton of new supporters as a result of this, all of these different stances, all these different incidents. Of course, later in the year then, it was announced that Bubba Wallace would be driving for Michael Jordan, who was coming into NASCAR starting a new team. So 3 major headlines that Bubba Wallace was a part of this year, so no surprise to see him high up on that list. It was a crazy year for NASCAR, and it's not surprising that the public took notice and was trying to do their research, Googling Ryan Newman and Bubba Wallace's name. But I want to talk about this survey that was published this week as well. It was published yesterday. I saw it reported by Adam Stern. It's a survey from Morning Consult, and here Stern says, NASCAR has been ranked as the 9th fastest growing brand among Gen Z adults aged 18 to 23 by a new poll from Morning Consult. And here is the chart that was being shared around by everyone I know within the NASCAR industry. A lot of excitement about it. Morning Consult surveyed people in January of this year about thousands of different brands, and then surveyed people again just this past November to see what brands had grown in notoriety the most over the course of this year. And you can see this chart shows both what grew the most among Gen Z, which is roughly my age, or maybe actually a little bit younger, and also millennials, who are, I guess, slightly older than me. I'm 23. But you can see on the Gen Z side, NASCAR clocks in 9th, behind things like Zoom, TikTok, HBO Max, DoorDash, of course, Twitch, not surprising, but ahead of brands like Pepsi, iMessage, Crocs. Crocs are making a comeback? Okay. A significant jump from the beginning of 2020 to the end of 2020 for NASCAR. This has gotten a lot of people I know very, very excited. It's not just, oh, have you heard of NASCAR this year? It's more, would you consider, I guess in this case, going to a NASCAR race or watching NASCAR on TV? So I think that makes this chart even more significant. Because the reason I started by talking about Ryan Newman and Bubba Wallace is everyone heard about NASCAR this year. I mean, I had more conversations with family members over the course of this year about NASCAR than I ever have had in my life, because they've all heard about NASCAR at some point or another in the news this year. But this isn't just, are you aware of NASCAR? This is, would you go to a NASCAR race? Would you watch it on TV? And the fact that NASCAR clocks in so high on that list is a welcome sight, a surprising sight to see. For years, and I've shown data on this show, different polls, different research, NASCAR has been proven to have one of the oldest fan bases among any major sports league in the United States. For years, NASCAR was failing to consistently attract younger viewers. The reason this Morning Consult survey is so exciting is this obviously bucks that trend, showing that 18 to 23-year-olds, I mean, that's like my demographic almost. The fact that people like me, or many of you watching right now at home, are getting more and more interested in NASCAR, that's huge. That's a complete turnaround, a complete 180 from kind of the going theory, the going idea for the last like 20 years or more. If this turns into a more consistent thing, if the percentage of NASCAR fans consistently gets a little bit younger each year, that's huge, because eventually you need to attract younger fans, because those younger fans will then be fans for a long, long time. I mean, you got to attract younger fans at some point or another, and this chart suggests NASCAR did a very good job of that this year. The hope now is that this will become a consistent thing every single year. Now, 2020 was special for a number of reasons I've already talked about. The Ryan Newman crash in February, as traumatic as it was for many, it raised awareness for NASCAR. And like I said earlier about it reminding the public that race cars are dangerous. Things can go bad, and go bad in spectacular fashion sometimes. From a marketing perspective, at least, I think that is a good thing. I think if NASCAR has a sense of danger to it, that makes it more fun to watch. Again, we don't want drivers to get hurt. I obviously think NASCAR's safety initiatives over the last 20 years have been incredible. We don't want drivers getting hurt, but that little threat of danger is what's going to sell the sport to many people. That's what made the sport popular 30, 40, 50 years ago, because NASCAR was dangerous and people like danger. It's human instinct. I already mentioned how 2020 was special for Bubba Wallace, all the things he was involved with that drew national media attention. Many of those aren't going to happen every year. You know, we can't ban the Confederate flag every season. You know, that's kind of a one-time deal. Hopefully we don't have another Talladega incident and miscommunication every year. That would be bad. You can't do that every year. That would be, The President of the United States is not going to attend the Daytona 500 every single season, so you can't expect that boost, because this year's Daytona 500, at least the Sunday portion, got a huge ratings boost this year. You can't expect a pandemic every year, because I think other things that boosted NASCAR's popularity in 2020 were the iRacing Pro Invitationals. The fact that every major sport pretty much was off the air for several months, but NASCAR, every weekend on FS1, a national TV channel, they had iRacing. They had the stars. They had Dale Earnhardt Jr., Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch, Jimmy Johnson. They had the stars continuing to race every single week, and I harped on it a ton at the time, but Fox's broadcasts were fantastic. Gordon, Mike Joy, Larry McReynolds, Boyer, they were fantastic during those broadcasts, and fans ate that stuff up. Those races each drew in at least 1 million viewers on cable TV, and that kept NASCAR relevant during the shutdown, and it boosted iRacing sales. I mean, kids like video games and streaming. You know, Twitch was like 7th on that list among Gen Z. Reports in April were that iRacing's subscription base grew 50%, as in roughly 50,000 new subscribers joined the service in March and April. That was an enormous boost. I mean, I saw it firsthand. My dad went out and bought a steering wheel and subscribed to iRacing for a few months to give it a try. He might even still be subscribed. I'm not sure. He might be running like blazing laps at this point. I'm not sure. But he did that because of the iRacing Pro Invitational and how successful it was. So we're not going to see that every single year. You know, you got the Coca-Cola iRacing series, and Coca-Cola this year poured hundreds of thousands of dollars into that series, but you're not going to see the iRacing Pro Invitational every year. Hopefully there's not a pandemic every season. You know, NASCAR is not going to get the chance to be the first sport back in action every year, because that's what they were this year. That's another huge boost NASCAR got. May 17th, when they returned to Darlington Raceway, that race got huge ratings. What was it, like 6.5 million viewers tuned into a race in the middle of May? You know, that wasn't the Coke 600. That has not happened in years. So NASCAR got a boost with that first race back, being one of the first major sports to come back to real life competition. And the whole year wrapped up nicely with Chase Elliott, the sport's most popular driver, winning his first Cup Series title. There are a lot of those things that are not going to happen every single year. NASCAR can't count on them to happen every year. And a lot of those things contributed to a significant popularity boost in 2020. So I'm not actually shocked to see NASCAR on that list. The question now is, can this be sustained? Is NASCAR going to continue to grow its share of younger fans, or was 2020 just a total fluke? You know, there are a few things that somebody just mentioned that I think NASCAR needs to continue to foster in 2021 and beyond. For example, iRacing and esports in general. I know I first got into NASCAR by playing NASCAR Thunder 2004 on the PlayStation 2. NASCAR needs a tremendous console video game series that they have not really had in a number of years. iRacing needs to continue to be put front and center, because young adults like video games, young adults like streaming, and I know there's plenty of people who stream iRacing. They're real life NASCAR drivers that stream iRacing and get significant numbers of viewers to tune in each time they do it. So NASCAR needs to continue to foster that scene. Another thing that happened this year was Michael Jordan entering NASCAR. Michael Jordan is arguably the most iconic sports legend in American history. To have that man and his name and his brand attached to a NASCAR Cup Series team, a likely competitive NASCAR Cup Series team with other high-profile drivers like Denny Hamlin and Bubba Wallace, this could be huge if this is successful going forward. I hope 23XI Racing, and I hope NASCAR, and I hope Michael Jordan really go all out for this. I hope Michael Jordan does not sit idly by and let everybody else hog the spotlight. I know that's kind of been Michael Jordan's style in recent years. He's not the, you know, he owns the Charlotte Hornets basketball team. He's not always front and center for that, for all their different PR related affairs. Michael Jordan's known to kind of sit back and let business be business until, you know, occasionally he'll step out in front of the camera for like an ESPN documentary series. But Michael Jordan's very selective as to when he shows his face in public. I hope he chooses to be fairly public facing with 23XI Racing, because having Michael Jordan attached to that race team opens NASCAR up to new demographics, to new potential fans that maybe never even considered watching a NASCAR race. Michael Jordan, Bubba Wallace, Denny Hamlin have the potential to open their eyes rise to something new and exciting, and that could be huge for the future of NASCAR. So that's something that happened this year, that started this year, that should be fostered, and I think will be fostered for years to come. This is going to sound cliche, but social media is also huge. NASCAR has almost 1 million followers on TikTok. That's a new platform that I don't spend a whole lot of time on, but I know people who have built up massive followings on TikTok. Anthony Alfredo, Ryan Vargas, 2 part-time Xfinity Series drivers, have over 100,000 followers each on that platform. Haley Deegan, who of course is big across all social media, she has over 2 million followers on TikTok. TikTok is of course the new thing, but it's not for everyone. YouTube. I don't want to toot my own horn here or anything like that, but the YouTube space in general. I've actually gotten to work with NASCAR's official YouTube team this year. Guys like Jonathan Merriman, Alex Weaver, Kim Kuhn, I've gotten to talk to them. If you've watched NASCAR's YouTube channel, I've appeared in some of their videos this year. NASCAR is focused on social media like YouTube, like Twitter, and like NASCAR's YouTube channel, I checked their Social Blade statistics. They grew in popularity significantly this year. They're up at over 580,000 subscribers, and you look at this graph, look at that huge spike at the start of 2020, and they more or less maintained it throughout the year. And I don't want to sound too self-serving here, but what I'm doing with Out of the Groove, what you all are doing by supporting the community, by engaging in the comments, engaging on Twitter, the entire online NASCAR community has grown and flourished dramatically this year. Many of my friends who also have YouTube channels that many of you are probably familiar with, there are a lot of independent creators on sites like YouTube now that are continuing to further the NASCAR conversation, to deepen the NASCAR conversation, and are continuing to get people excited about stock car racing. And it's not just me. I'm not sitting here trying to, again, put myself on some sort of pedestal or anything, but I really do believe the community that exists now on many forms of social media, but specifically YouTube, has been incredible this year. It's been an enormous year of growth for many creators, and that's because people are interested in NASCAR, and people are interested in how independent creators and NASCAR itself are presenting the sport, and I think that's stuff that can and will continue beyond this year. I know I've mainly focused on marketing and off the track details so far in this video, but even on the track, going forward, NASCAR is about to enter a completely new era. In 2021, there will be 7 road courses, 7 different road courses on the NASCAR Cup Series schedule. I thought NASCAR was just left turns, circles, ovals, all that type of stuff. NASCAR said no. We're turning into IndyCar now. It's a hybrid. This is a new era we are about to witness. There are going to be many similarities, of course, between the new era and what we've all grown up knowing and watching, but there are going to be significant changes. Of course, a brand new race car is on the horizon for 2022. New race teams are knocking on the door, trying to get into the sport. Many are entering the sport next season, so there are going to be changes. I think many of them are good. There will be some sacrifices. Many of them are bad. In-person attendance has dropped in recent years, but they've kind of flatlined the last couple. Same with TV ratings. But it's important to note that NASCAR is still, by a wide margin, the most popular motorsport series in the country. That doesn't mean it can't improve. That doesn't mean it should get complacent and just be comfortable and say, all right, it is what it is. But these surveys, these trends that we've seen this week are incredibly encouraging. It tells me, it should tell other fans of the sport that at least some of what NASCAR is doing is right. I come at this from a different perspective. When I was growing up, before I started doing YouTube videos, and especially before I started doing Out of the Groove, I always considered myself a fan of like certain drivers first. The same way I am with other sports. I'm a Houston Rockets fan. I'm not really an NBA fan. Like, I could really care less what happens to the NBA, but I love the Rockets. I'm sure many of you are the same way about all other sports. You may love the New England Patriots. You don't really care about the NFL. Nobody seems to like Roger Goodell. You may be a huge Yankees fan, a huge Dodgers fan, a huge Atlanta Braves fan. You might be a huge Miami Dolphins fan, a Los Angeles Lakers fan. More than likely, you are not a huge fan of the sanctioning body. That's how I was with NASCAR for many years. I was a Matt Kenseth fan first and foremost. In fact, for a number of years there, I was irritated with NASCAR when they suspended him but didn't suspend Jeff Gordon. I was like, what are you doing, NASCAR? I was a Matt Kenseth fan first and a NASCAR fan second. Ever since Matt Kenseth more or less retired, I'm going to pretend 2020 didn't happen. Ever since I really started doing this show and appreciating NASCAR more broadly, I've begun looking at NASCAR more broadly, and I would consider myself right now a NASCAR fan first and a fan of any specific driver second. But I understand that many of you watching may think differently. Many of you watching have a favorite driver that you root for, good and bad. You got their hat, you got their diecast, you got their jacket, t-shirts. You are a Chase Elliott fan. You are a Kyle Busch fan, a Martin Truex fan. You are a fan of a specific driver first and a fan of NASCAR, the sanctioning body, the series second. And I understand that because that's how I've always been. And I understand that most people, young and old, think like that. Are fans of drivers or specific teams first, and then fans of the series, the sanctioning body second. So I know I come at this from a slightly different perspective, but my perspective is that I want NASCAR as a sport to succeed. I'm willing to sacrifice certain things that maybe I like I like the playoffs. But if NASCAR was able to prove that changing the playoffs or getting rid of the playoffs was going to be better for the sport in general, the health of the sport, the competition level of the sport, I would be okay with it. I'm using that as a specific example. I don't think that's actually true. I think the NASCAR playoffs are going to stay and should stay, but we've had that topic before. But when I do a video like this, I'm focusing on NASCAR extremely broadly because NASCAR is in a somewhat precarious position. Many businesses, many even sports leagues are in a similar situation with COVID and everything exacerbating things. But even without the pandemic, NASCAR is in a more precarious situation than they were 15, 20 years ago. So from my perspective, I do care about the health of NASCAR and I want the sport overall to succeed. So when I see data, when I see surveys like this that show that NASCAR is apparently reaching younger fans like myself in major ways, that makes me really, really happy. You all may have different reactions. Please share them in the comment section below, but you've heard my piece. I was excited seeing the news yesterday, and I still don't know exactly how seriously to take it, but it sounds legitimate, and looking at everything that happened in 2020, I'm not shocked that NASCAR was on the tip of everyone's tongue more often this year. That's all I've got for today's episode. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Again, be sure to subscribe if you are not already. We're talking NASCAR all through the off season. We've got plenty other videos in the works for the coming days and weeks. I hope you all are excited for them because I certainly am. I'll have more to share very, very soon. As always, a huge thank you to my amazing Patreon supporters. I could not do this show without your continued support. I hope you all enjoyed this episode. I know it was a bit longer, but I slept on everything last night and I woke up this morning and just felt like I had a lot to say. So I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. Leave your comments down below. I will see you in the next video. Have a great rest of your week.